Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Mills, and this is the October 2024 GInI webinar. We want to welcome you to this webinar and thank you for joining us. As many of you know, Global Innovation Institute is the world's leading professional certification, business accreditation, and membership organization focused on applied business innovation. We have authorized providers around the world that deliver our training and our assessments. We have individuals who are certified all over the world and businesses who are accredited around the world through our programs. And so we strive very hard to continue to really perpetuate the body of knowledge around innovation and transformation and the role of innovation and technology and creativity and really shaping our future and what's happening. And so that's why we have this monthly webinar series to continue to expand our knowledge as a community around that. So I just want to welcome you again to this webinar, October 2024. What I'd like to do now is to introduce our guest today and tell you about him. And after I introduce him, I will turn over the floor to him. So our guest today is Mr. Faisal Hoque. Faisal is an entrepreneur, business innovator, and author with nearly 30 years of cross-industry success. He is recognized as one of the world's top management thinkers and technologists today. He is the founder and CEO of multiple companies, including Shadoka, Next Chapter, and several others. He also serves as a transformation and innovation partner for CACI, a $6.7 billion company focused on U.S. national security. Faisal has developed more than 20 different commercial platforms and worked with leadership at the U.S. Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, General Electric, MasterCard, American Express, the Home Depot, PepsiCo, IBM, Chase, and other organizations. For their innovative work, he and his team have been awarded several provisional patents in the areas of user authentication, business rule routing, and metadata sorting. Faisal has authored 10 award-winning books published by Cambridge University Press, Financial Times, HarperCollins Leadership, McGraw-Hill, Fast Company Press, and others. His work has also appeared in such publications as Fast Company, Business Insider, The Wall Street Journal, Business Week, Fox, CBS, The Financial Times, Forbes, Inc., and others. His forthcoming book, Transcend, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI, is scheduled to be released next year, first quarter of next year, by Post Hill Press and distributed by Simon & Schuster. Faisal is a three-time Wall Street Journal best-selling author for his books Reinvent, which was #1, Everything Connects, which was a #2, and Lift, which is also a #1. And Everything Connects and Lift were also USA Today bestsellers. Faisal is a three-time winner of Deloitte's Technology Fast 50 and Fast 500 awards, and the recipient of 30-plus awards overall, including Axiom Gold, Nautilus, Forward, Book Excellence, Thinkers 50 Distinguished Achievement Awards 2023 shortlist, and other awards in the realms of humanity, business, and technology. He was also named among the top 100 most influential people in technology by the editors of Ziff Davis Enterprise, while Trust Across America, Trust Around the World named him one of their top 100 thought leaders. In 2008, CIO Quarterly magazine designated Faisal as Mr. Convergence for developing methods to integrate business strategies with technology decisions. Faisal frequently speaks at international conferences, business schools, corporate gatherings, and business summits. His talks are focused on leadership, innovation, and transformation, with a particular focus on long-term sustainable impact. Faisal also volunteers for several organizations, including MIT's Ideas Social Innovation Program, and he is a contributor at the Swiss Business School IMD, Thinkers 50, Project Management Institute, and others. So today, Faisal, drawing from his forthcoming book, Transcend, is going to be talking to us about how we can move past speculation about the future of AI and actually start building that future for ourselves. This is an entirely new perspective on the future of AI. And with philosophy as its foundation, Faisal develops two practical frameworks, Open and Care, for harnessing the potential of AI while mitigating its respective dangers. Ultimately, he'll argue, AI will reflect the best and worst of humanity back at us. So using the technology wisely starts with thinking deeply about what it means to be human. And as innovation leaders, this is incredibly important to us because in our lifetimes, AI will overturn the world we know. And so we must prepare ourselves to meet the unprecedented changes that are now upon us. And we have to understand the role that we will play in shaping the future of AI inside of our own organizations. And so with that, please join me now, if you will, in welcoming Mr. Faisal Hoque. Faisal, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Anthony. I mean, that was quite the intro. So I hope I can live up to that expectation that you just built up. I'm very excited about today's conversation because this is the first time I'm actually presenting what we have researched and put together, for last couple of years, both from practice as well as research around AI, but not so much about the AI technology, but more from the utilization and how it can shape as individual, as organization, and as government agencies across the globe. So that's what we'll talk about. I will literally give overview of the various sections we covered in the book and give examples from the book. So that's what I'll be doing, and hopefully, tail end of the conversation, we can have a dialogue so that I can maybe answer some insights that I have gathered over the last couple of years dealing with this topic. So, as you said, Anthony, the book is called Transcend, and I'm going to just kind of cover from there. If you scan my website, you can get all kind of information. You can also scan the book site from up there, just giving you some basic information. So, look, the way Anthony, you kind of set the stage out by saying that I looked at it from a very philosophical point of view because unlike any other technology, and because where human society is today, AI is kind of a very different beast than let's say what we dealt with during the internet when the internet was coming out, and other type of technology that we have seen over the years. So many ways, I mean, a lot of people dub AI as like the philosopher's stone. In every culture around the globe, there is this notion of philosopher's stone, whereby philosopher's stone turns opportunity and humanity for wish fulfilling element, both from knowledge as well as turning material into something that everybody desires or everybody hopes for. So AI is kind of have that kind of promise. And so, but, just like, every single culture talks about the danger of philosopher's stone, AI also has that, positive and negative element to it. It could either take us to the next level, which we call the transcending humanity to the next level, or it could destroy us. That remains to be seen. So we kind of approached this from that angle, and we took a balanced approach, obviously focusing on what is it that we can do to move human society to the next level in terms of our health, physical health, mental health, financial success, spirituality, as well as a collective global society that can coexist and succeed individually, but as also as a globe as a whole. So that's really the entire focus of this book. Obviously, there's technical element to it because we're talking about a technology, but more so it's application of the technology and how do we look at it, and critical thinking, because none of us really know where this technology will end up in next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or 50 years from now. I have this quote from Geoffrey Hinton, as some of you know, that he just got the Nobel Prize for physics. He's also dubbed as the godfather of AI. He has a pretty interesting quote that he gave a few months ago on 60 Minutes, where he was dubbing AI as a doomsday kind of a scenario, because AI has the possibility to learn anything and everything that we produced and will be producing, and use that to manipulate us, meaning human manipulating human, but also AI manipulating human. So hence lies the danger. And if you look at some of this on my, on the screen, some recent headlines whereby a variety of conversation, both from a positive point of view as well as negative point of view, whereby it could completely change the world, but it also could destroy the world, right? So really to understand these interconnected, element, what this technology can do, we looked at it from philosophy, because philosophy teaches us what's right and what's wrong, and how do we, think about what humanity is. And philosophy, by the way, it's not just based on Eastern philosophy or Western philosophy. We looked at a global philosophical point of view, and we've drawn wisdom from all sorts of philosophers from, early century to modern day philosophy. And obviously that, philosophy drives what humanity means in general, what it means to be human. Human psychology is very much based on philosophical notion. And by the way, with that context, it boils down to leadership and management, because that's how we're going to navigate the technology that AI brings to the table. So we looked at from the four angle, and then we obviously developed this framework that you talk about, that you introduced, Anthony, in your introduction, which we call open and care. Open meaning open to possibilities. Care means how do we care for the humanity, and there's a pretty in-depth micro steps and guidance and methods from a critical thinking point of view. So, so we start with this notion of what is humanity and how do we think about humanity, and how does it, really impacts us positively and negatively. And we argue that you really have to define what we should be devoting in terms of taking us forward, and what we should be detaching to protect ourselves. So I'll give a very simple example. We often get into this conversation these days about social media and algorithm effect of social media. I mean, we can devote ourselves to figure out how do we improve algorithm, obviously from a technical point of view. But we could also argue that we should be devoted not to get into the rabbit hole and just clicking on things that sucks us into a very divisive behavioral pattern, right? So it's both a technical thing and a non-technical thing. So, and you'll see, I'll give example after example, how that devotion and detachment works from a very philosophical point of view to shape us, our future, to take us forward. And we do that again from an individual point of view, a organizational point of view, and government agency point of view. And another thing we will also highlight the fact that human beings can break patterns. Today's AI still cannot break patterns. Someday it will be able to break patterns. And because we can break pattern, we still have the opportunity to shape what the world would be tomorrow and day after and years from now. And that is our individual and societal challenge, how we should navigate ourselves to innovate for good and innovate for greater impact. So we start by talking about humanity, but we also talk about how to think about AI. And even though there's been a lot of hype about AI, probably last 3-4 years because of the generative AI evolution and what we have seen with things like OpenAI, but you can actually go back in 11th century and even before that, where this notion of automation and notion of intelligent mechanical devices and other kind of devices has been thought of and been talked about and documented. So in 11th century, there was a writer called Ismail al-Jazira who wrote a book called The Book of Knowledge of ingenious mechanical devices, and you can see his sketches, because he was an architect and a scholar, somewhat like Da Vinci, but a lot before Da Vinci, that talks about these devices and robotic type of elements that will help us to move us forward. Fast forward in 90s when we started seeing internet and it connected us, and I was actually very much part of that process because I developed GE's first internet-enabled B2B infrastructure where people from across the different public sector and other sector could come in one place and buy stuff utilizing a website when browser was just coming out. Netscape just introduced the browser, and at that time, what was the key difference about that time versus now is the fact that during that time technology was not as democratic. It was not as accessible to anybody and everybody. So and you remember during that time there was Moore's law that talked about the exponential of growth of technology that will happen over the years. And now that now with the biggest challenge and opportunity is that technology is somewhat democratic. Everybody has access to it. So the growth of technology is also very exponential. So what that means is that it has the opportunity to help us, but it also has the opportunity to be very destructive, what we see across the globe when we look at different conflict zones, and both in here in US and across the globe, how technology is being utilized for destruction, right? So the story of AI is new in the sense that we have this new generation models, foundational models, and large language models. And obviously, you can categorize AI with the weak AI and strong AI and super intelligent AI, which we haven't seen yet, but it will be coming out pretty soon. But these type of different kind of models and thinking about these models and opportunities will shape how we can we can go forward. And even though there's a lot of conversation about generative AI, which we all use now for documentation and writing and getting answer. But I mean, the application of AI in a potential drug design and diagnostics and weather forecasting and supply chain management has really nothing to do with generative AI. It's a different kind of AI model that allow us to do that, factory automation, et cetera, et cetera. Those are different kind of AI, and so we're just at the cusp of where technology is and where we can take it. So understanding where AI came from and the interconnectedness of not just the technology but the distributed nature of it is very important when we think about where we can apply as an individual, but also as an organization. So look, one of the things that we also have to understand is that there's human and there's AI, but how do we work together? And I kind of look at AI as very much of a partnership model, because it will evolve into a intelligent persona. And I use this notion of persona in a previous book called Everything Connects. When we were talking about innovation, I wasn't talking in the context of AI, but in the context of different roles that we each play in an organization or in a team, where we take on a persona of a product developer or a marketeer or an engineer or a researcher, and it helps us, and we play that role, and as a team, we develop whatever we want to develop. You can look at AI also in that lens, because you can define and model a different type of AI engine as persona that plays a role. So you could see, and then you can actually, people are playing with it as we speak about it. Like other day, somebody talked about bringing an AI persona in your dinner table and having a conversation while you are having dinner and engaging in the conversation. So in that context, that AI persona is a persona where it's a participant. you can take it to the next level where you can look at, I'm sure some of you have watched the movie, whereby there are different Jarvis gosh, I can't remember the movie name right now, but Jarvis play a role where it helps the main character to do research and do different kind of activity. Similarly, there will be AI persona that will be partnering up with us, to do different tasks. But the large language model that's being trained, it is from the human data. So it's generating new data. It's the collective data that we are producing that trains this model to do a particular task. So the more refined and more defined we get, the better result we will get from this persona. I have a particular interest on a personal level for utilization of AI for cancer research because my son is a cancer survivor. There is a lot of work being done in terms of collection of different kind of patient data of various age group and various type of responses from the different type of drug, because cancer is a type of disease. That's very individualistic, and it depends very much on the particular DNA structure and a particular age group for that particular the patient that's being treated. You can imagine a persona that helps a physician or an oncologist, whereby it's giving you those particular type of data element because it's being fed with those kind of data to give you an answer that's quite relevant and quite computationally very fast, so that you can treat the patient better. This kind of example in the context of thinking of AI as a persona is going to be critical for how we move our personal life, but also a wide variety of application in various sectors. So now that we have that background in place, let me talk about this framework we developed. We particularly focused on keeping it very simple. So because there is a wide variety of understanding and knowledge who are trying to apply AI in different kind of organization and different kind of application. So open, as I mentioned, is the element of the framework that allows you to think through what are the different kind of opportunities, and care is the element of the framework that basically allows us to govern how we should think about protecting ourselves so that we don't create a messy situation or create something that we should not be creating. And behind each of these two types of framework, there's micro framework that becomes applicable for individual and businesses and for government, and they're slightly different because the complexity and utilization and applications are very different on an individual basis and on a type of business and type of government that you're dealing with. And by the way, these framework are basically feeds of many different kind of strategic thinking and process improvement thinking and innovation model that are out there, and we try to codify it and try to make it very simple so that people can easily relate with case studies that are kind of understandable. And the reason we did that is because of the very fact that we don't know where the technology is going to be. So you can't just develop a framework. I mean, you can for generative AI today, but it will soon be obsolete. It's the critical thinking pattern and how we go about framing it and orchestrating this new kind of technology that's going to be making the difference. So so we'll start with the individual application in terms of exploring opportunity. And and as I said, there's micro methodologies or micro steps behind each of those the things that we just talked about. So for example, if you say, look, we want to experiment, we have a micro methodology called PLAY, and PLAY stands for play small bets, learn, adopt, and iterate and yield to data. So these kind of, we don't have the time to get into the nuts and bolts of each of this framework, but let's take a look at an example of an individual, we call, which is a fictitious case study, whereby we say, okay, there's an individual named Fatima. She's a former high school English teacher, and she's trying to launch a business, and she's going to become a solo entrepreneur, utilizing her own knowledge, but also utilizing AI as it stands today. So in her case, utilizing this framework, we articulate the fact that, look, she will be using this a large language model both as an ideation partner for the kind of things she can offer as an educator for her business, but she's also going to use a different kind of AI engine to generate different type of marketing content that will help us to propagate her idea of what are the kind of product and services she can provide. And the framework helps us guide through this building general and technical knowledge that will help her focus. And how does she would be able to make actually a living from the offering that she has. Now, if you think about a couple of years back, and if you were a solo entrepreneur, that kind of accessibility of these kind of tools wasn't there. So she would have had to find a mentor. She would have had to go through a lot of research, maybe go to school. None of us really need to do that anymore because we have those kind of tools at our fingertip, right? But what requires is this critical thinking process of how do we go about it? How do we go about creating a product and service offering? How do we go about marketing it? How do we go about creating a differentiation based on the very fundamental purpose and value proposition that us as an individual wants to bring to the world, right? So this framework actually helps you with that process. Now, similarly, if you want to say, okay, Fatima now wants to also have to think about how does she protect herself from these kind of genericization of knowledge and expertise, because it's not only she has the accessibility to those tools, everybody has the same access to the tools and technology as she does, right? So she worries about that, right? She also worries about the fact that as she gets dependent on these kind of technology, how does she not lose her creative edge? And as actually a lot of artists, a lot of authors, people like me, think about the fact that as we push out our knowledge out in the open forum, how does we don't get obsolete because now it's so generic and everybody can write stuff with AI and whatnot. The reality is that we do, I have a research team that helped us put together some of this research and develop this framework as we develop this book. We actually use quite a bit of AI, to support that process, but we also highlighted, the AI's answer and AI's method versus humanistic method, because AI still cannot do this human-centric design and human-centric offering that is very much driven by empathy and a particular purpose and particular mindful approach. How do you go about, not just highlighting our individualistic, creativity, but also thinking about society as a whole and impacting the global society beyond just the financial means that we need to survive ourselves. So when you look at the risk of AI in the context of individual, there is 4 categories of risk that we talk about, and one is this economic risk, because if you look at on this side, we talk about some stat of people already losing jobs and being replaced, and the fact is that I'm sure you've seen in the last few weeks NVIDIA unleashing some robots for doing a bunch of work. You saw Elon Musk earlier this week, promoting his robots that coming to the market. So what's the impact of that? You can already imagine that repeatable restaurants like McDonald's and others are all staffed by robots. You can imagine that taxis are all now self-driving. So what happens? 40% of the workforce that are doing those kind of jobs are jobless. I actually had this conversation with a couple of our U.S. sitting senators because which we get into later in the governance process of what's the government role to protect humanity and create these next generation job opportunities. It gets pretty dicey, right? So there's economic impact of AI, but there's also mental and spiritual impact of AI because if you're a creative person, you could start thinking about your self-worth. What's your value? If everything is automated and everything is created by AI, then what's your value? So here, and I've kind of put myself in that process because I've never used AI to write anything in my life before up until I started working with this book, and actually it was very helpful, and I was actually was much more productive. So you can also look at from that point of view. It's a fine balance where you stop and where you leverage. There's also a physical element that will be the impact of AI, because if everything is automated and you're not moving from your desk and you're sitting home and everything is done for you, then there's obviously a physical element of AI. And we get into this deeper when we talk about my next example, where there's good and also there's bad of utilizing a lot of these AI-enabled, not just the software, but also hardware. So these are the kind of things that the individual will have to think about as we navigate through what's the next opportunity for as an individual, and where we learn and where we apply our creative juices and where we contribute. So it's going to be anything but challenge. It's going to be utterly challenging, no matter how you look at it. And if you're not staying with it, the obsolescence will come a lot faster than it did during the days of internet when I started my technical career versus what I am today. I think every day there's a new and different things. So we now apply the same model of open framework in a business, and we apply the care also in a business example. And we argue that look, in the context of business, there's lots of opportunity for businesses to take advantage of AI, and that's a lot of the big companies are already doing it. Whether that's NVIDIA creating a design work with AI, or Amazon is fulfilling their orders with robots in their warehouses. It's already happening, right? And the critically what will become critical for all organization is very much focused on their purpose, what they stand for and what they exist, and leveraging that purpose to innovate with technology. So, you've seen a lot of these in recent media about Nike. They had just a new CEO in place. So we kind of I've been a long follower of Nike, and I love their mission statement where they talk about, you have a body, you are an athlete. It's very aspirational. So we use Nike as an example, and a fictitious example, where how about if Nike got into the business of selling robotic arms and robotic body parts, because there are a lot of disabled people around the globe. Disabled not just not having a arm and a limb. I can talk from my own personal situation where my mother is in a nursing home and she can't get up as easily as she used to. Imagine having a device that allows her to get up easily and maintain a regular life. I mean, you could get into all those sort of a business. But the reason we picked up Nike as an example is this aspirational goal of that if you have a body, you can be an athlete. So if you are an amputee or you have a disabled person, what if Nike starts developing this robotic arms and robotic legs and that sort of a element, and provide that as a product and service model? And we looked at the businesses that are in that business, like, for example, you look at Medtronic and other companies who sells medical devices, and they had to develop a whole new supply chain model that taps into the selling model and the distributor model and the teaming up with the physicians, et cetera, et cetera. And it's very much of a cross collaboration and cross discipline business model. But it's all starts with that purpose and the brand recognition. And we developed this fictitious supply chain model with this framework in the book that we go into details where they should be teaming up in terms of human resources, but also how do you take advantage of things like AI personnel, like NVIDIA has done with their design team, which part of the design team is actually artificial intelligence, robotics, and other models. How do you go about doing that, and how do you stay focused on your North Star and your purpose to elevate your brand to the next level, and how do you succeed? Because if you just remain as a traditional apparel company, I don't know whether they will be able to survive, just like Blockbuster or Kodak or many other companies did not survive because they stuck with their traditional model. And speaking of the Blockbuster and Kodak, if you actually do the homework, it's not Kodak and Blockbuster and Xerox fallen behind because they didn't have the technology. Kodak actually had a lot of the digital camera technology way before Apple and other people had, but they couldn't monitor it because they just couldn't extend their purpose to the next level of adoption, right? And so we argued that businesses will have to think about people, product, purpose, and planet if they want to actually do good with these type of technology and introduce new set of product and services that would not only propel them, but that will also propel global society to the next level. So going back to that Nike example, here's a very dark portrait of what would happen. So let's say now Nike got ambitious in that example, and they're now not only just enabling human beings, they're enhancing humans, where people like drug cartel and various armies in the globe buying those enhanced robotic arms and legs and creating this militia army for their own purposes, right? So how does Nike play a role in not making those robotic arms and legs, so powerful that it doesn't backfire and have a totally negative effect, right? So the governance element of it comes from that perspective, that what is enough and where do you stop and how do you have oversight from a leadership board to the development team to marketing team, so that whatever you're creating actually does good. And we can actually already take a lot of lessons from social media, because if you look at social media, the purpose of the social media, when a lot of the social media came, we want to share, we want to connect, we want to move our community and the society so that we become an interconnected society. But look at what has happened over the last 10, 5, and last 3, 4 years, where social media with the algorithmic, powers and utilization has created a very divisive society and very divisive globe, right? And it was not really governed the way it should have been governed. And I've actually talked about this 10 years ago. We think there is a much bigger danger with AI than what we have seen with social media, as an example, right? So every company, every business will have to come up with a governance model that holds back and actually focus on the good, not just doing innovation for innovation's sake and create even a more divisive global society. So that actually takes me to the next set of characters, which is the government. And as you see, governments will be, and it's very well established by now, that every kind of government will spend a wide variety of investment on AI, whether that's whether that's in Europe, whether that's in the US, whether that's China, whether that's Middle East. I know there's somebody from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has spent quite a bit of investment in AI technology already. So all government will spend a lot of money in AI. the question is, where do we spend the money? And I had a unique chair or a lens of working with our U.S. Government for the last 7, 8 years in the DoD and other places, and there's lots of opportunity to do good. So we focused on highlighting some case studies where you can utilize AI, for doing good, and we use this open framework, coming up with a case study where there is an agency in U.S. Government called the Department of Commerce, and there's within that agency there's a group called the Economic Development Administration that actually tries to enhance the community by bringing the opportunity and matching the investors to create businesses that are particularly for underserved community. So we propose that imagine that group taking on a product development effort whereby you have a AI enabled platform that matches this opportunity with investors, so that these underserved community can be benefited from the different ideas that are being percolated in all sorts of by all sorts of entrepreneurs and all sorts of small businesses. So you could use the same open framework with nuances to define that kind of model where you are very very much purpose driven and very much opportunity driven. At the same time, you can also create the killer robots and drones and whatnot, using the same model. So that's why I keep saying it's entirely up to us how we want to utilize this technology to do good or to do bad. Now let's take a same example utilizing that governance model that we talk about in our CARE framework, whereby what could go wrong even with this simple example of this the Economic Development Agency's effort to create a platform. Now, I'm sure you've heard quite a bit about biases in the AI model. The biases exist in the AI model is because it's the human mirror that's being reflected in AI models, because the models are fed by whatever is out there. So if you have a biased data set, you're going to have a biased outcome or biased result. Let me give you a more granular example in the context of this particular thing that we're talking about. So if you look at what are the good opportunity and what are the models that succeed in an entrepreneurial venture, if you look at classic private equity or classic venture model, you have to have a large market. You'll have to have buying power by a particular community. The entrepreneurs have to have a particular background. Maybe they have to be well-schooled from a good school. They may have to have a particular type of technology, et cetera, et cetera. I would argue that actually creates a bias, because in that scenario, underserved community will always remain underserved, because the ideas will be already rejected by a model that is based on a biased model, whereby it's a traditional model of, if you had the right background, you came up with the right idea, the product and services is geared toward a particular demographics type, only then you would be able to serve, and it will get the particular success that you're looking for. So despite the books like I'm some of you might have read a book called Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, that C.K. Parlat wrote almost like 20 years ago, models of the fact that there is a lot of opportunity in the underserved community really hasn't done very well. I mean, we're still focused on a particular type of model of businesses and opportunity, particularly if you see what comes out of Silicon Valley or other Silicon Valley, not just from California, but the Silicon Valley type of models, which doesn't necessarily always focus on the underserved community. So the challenge for these kind of platform would be rejecting those kind of biases by training the model without the biases. And you can even see in the medical field, and I was talking about cancer research. It's pretty interesting and pretty disheartening when I looked at this. That when you look at, okay, do you have data and a particular segment of population? Why do they get the cancer, and why other people don't get the cancer? So turns out that the people who can afford to go to the have the healthcare services are our particular economic group, particular ethnic types, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't have the real data to do actual proper diagnosis or drug development or the treatment, because those kind of data doesn't exist. So if you're feeding the large language model with kind of biased data, you can just think for a while, and you can all kind of bias model that would be created that will further actually put this underserved community at a disadvantage than what we see today, right? So government and I mean, when I looked at the legislative model that are being developed by the different type of government, both in UK and US and other European countries, this is going to be the biggest challenge from a legislative bodies. How do you create the right legislation that actually holds these organizations accountable, not to feed these biased data in this model, so that you can, that's going to be the primary role of the government. Obviously, the other kind of legislative model that has to be developed that actually holds somebody responsible when they're using these type of engines and the tools and the model as bad actors, right? So this brings back to my last slide, where do we end the book? Where we ended up. I started with this detach and devote. Hopefully, you got a little sense what I mean by devoted to humanity, and what I mean by detached from ourselves from doing harm, and personally focusing on the things that really matters. And many ways, because I took this very much of a philosophical note and a spiritual note, I think AI can be very helpful, with our personal spiritual journey, which ultimately, will help us to define what humanity is. I don't mean this from a theological point of view or a religious point of view. I mean purely as what it means as a human, and how do we guide ourselves as a human, and where do you go from here? And obviously, AI has a great potential from helping us to have a better life from a physical point of view, because of the drug discovery and the other kind of things that are out there. So, but regardless, it's going to be, if we thought the internet, and I mean, everybody on this call knows this, I'm just being redundant, that the impact of this kind of technology and utilization, because where the accessibility is and how aware the global population is of technology, is going to be 1,000 times faster than what we've seen during the development of microchips and the internet, and et cetera, et cetera. So it is even more important for us to be devoted to purpose and devoted to doing good than doing just business as usual, that what we have seen maybe last 15, 20 years. I'm going to stop there, so maybe we can take some questions and maybe answers, have some dialogues.
Thank you so much, Faisal. Very good, excellent. And wow, these are really points that make one stop and think, especially about the evolution of humanity and of business, and what this all means for us. So it's kind of pretty deep and good stuff. Hard to, I mean, not hard, but challenging to take in, and I appreciate it. So yeah, let's transition to some Q&A, and we do have some great questions from members of our audience that I'm going to read to you and let you think about and try to address for us. So the first question is from Robert Damashek, and the question is this: how do you, Faisal, think AI could be applied to enhancing ecosystems that bring together greater care, equity, and participation for communities and people? especially since a lot of what you mentioned already is focused and perhaps biased towards economic growth, even in individuals and government perspective. So ecosystems that bring together people for this sort of economic development.
Look, I mean, that example that I was giving about that, the EDA's, a fictitious example of EDA trying to develop a platform so that, the model kind of helps to identify opportunity and then matches those opportunity with the investors to create those businesses is an example of such ecosystem. And the reason we talk so much about the biased data is because so if you want to develop those kind of model, then you'll have to make sure that the data and the large language model that you're defining, feeding the type of data is, it extracts those biases, and you have to develop what are those biases and what are the risks of those biases. So, for example, if you say, look, economic opportunity for a particular business idea is only focused on a particular demographics that has a particular buying power, then you're already like being biased that, well, everybody doesn't have the same economic purchasing power, right? So how do they buy this product and services, right? Those kind of thinking is what needs to be fed into those models, aside from thinking about what's the construct of the ecosystem, right? It's easy to come up with a construct, meaning who's the audience, what shall we sell, what should we buy, how do we distribute, how do we team up? Those are the construct of the ecosystem in terms of a partnership model. But the data model that will stop the biases is much harder to think about because you're dealing with a pre-existing set of data. It's not, and so that will take time, and it will take a conscious effort, and you'll actually have to put together a particular, a governance, a proper governance model that it does the data governance to put together, that feeds those kind of data into the models.
Right, and I was just thinking as you're saying that, first of all, it requires the organizations using the tools to be very intentional about this. They have to make an intentional choice that we want to filter out the biases, and so in that intentionality, they have to sit down and figure out, okay, what are the biases? How do we detect the biases? How do we compensate for the biases? And that requires a lot of work. I mean, it's
Yes.
easier just to be lazy and let the biases go, but it does require a lot of explicit intentionality and effort to detect and adjust for the biases and compensate for those. So that's very important. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
And actually, so here's where the philosophy and mindset comes in, right? So because I mean, we are by nature, we're not very disciplined, right? I mean, if that was the case, every one of us would be, exercising every morning, meditating every morning, eating the right food. We all want easy answers, right? So the danger of the AI as a technology is that it is even it's actually supports that laziness, right? So being intentional and saying, okay, I have to be mindful what I'm feeding this beast. It requires much more discipline. This is what I mean by devoted. You have to be devoted to your intention, and you have to have a ritualistic practice how you intentionally govern that process. And it's a collective role, not just one person, right? So that's why I say, where we'll end up, it'll be the collective reflection of what we are, right? So
Yes.
lazier we get, easy answer we get, the worse it will get.
Hopefully it won't go down that rabbit hole. Let's shift. What Barbara asked a question. She said, you touched on purpose. How will this all impact human purpose? I've read that over 7 million men in the US have dropped out of the workforce. Depression and mental challenges are also on the rise. How will AI help? As it seems like we get a lot of our purpose via the performance of tasks of others. The new AI robots were promoted for taking care of children and being your friends, but I don't know, is that taking away from purpose? So, human purpose, how does it affect human purpose?
Look, I mean, hence lies the danger, right? Because if everything is done for us, I mean, look, what do we, and we use this notion of parent and children, whereby we say, look, AI today is a child, So we're being parenting the child to do certain things so that one day they will grow up and will take care of us. There's a danger to that too, because when the children grows up, then the parents become like child, and you're kind of lose your freedom. If we are not careful and we keep feeding this beast and we let it do anything and everything, we will become that movie Wall-E, that we're on some sort of maybe we'll be on Elon Musk shuttle, and it'll be fed soda and hamburger, and will become completely purposeless. So I think that being purposeful, we have to elevate ourselves at a higher thinking level to be intentionally purposeful. So the framework that I took talk about, which anchors around devotion and detachment, it actually comes from very much of a Buddhist philosophy, in the sense that if you want to reach a higher level of your mental capacity, then you have to be very mindful about everything and anything you do. We have to teach our next generation with that kind of discipline and mental acuity versus just, well, if you do this, you get this. If you learn this, you get this job. I think those days are over, because you don't know what it will be, right? So if we don't evolve ourselves in terms of constant evolution of higher level of critical thinking, it's a end game already.
Right. And I think personally, we have to make the choice to want to have a purpose and try to figure out and sort out what that purpose is and pursue that purpose. I
Right.
mean, I really don't see the point of a purposeless life, But,
Yeah.
not everyone's me, but, some people are happy to just be fed and sit back and be fat, dumb, and happy. But obviously, for thoughtful, mindful people, that's not what we want out of life. We want something that has purpose to it. So that's important.
And then look, every single technology have had its positive and negative impact. From steam engine to internet to AI,
Mhm.
it's all, it has a positive and a negative impact. The challenge with AI is much bigger and much faster, and it's much accelerated, right? So that's what we're dealing with.
And that's why it's more critical for us to be very intentional about it. Let me
Yeah.
shift over to another question from Taisa Shakwale. I hopefully I pronounced that right. If I didn't, forgive me. But the question is this: I plan to develop a recruitment transparency index to evaluate and rank corporations and organizations based on the quality and transparency of their recruitment processes. This will empower job seekers by helping them identify which companies prioritize fairness and efficiency, making their job search more targeted and informed. The index will combine human insights and AI-powered analytics to assess application transparency, candidate communication, and decision-making timelines. Here's the question: how can we leverage an open framework in this case?
So look, open framework has steps that helps you to say, okay, what are our opportunities? How do we create a portfolio of options that will help us to execute it? How do you assess the impact of this thing that you want to develop? How do you assess who are the partners involved? Because even in that question, there's like several partners. The candidate, there's the AI engine, there's the recruiter, et cetera, et cetera. What are the roles and responsibility of those? We talk about persona, that each of those characters becomes a persona. What are the roles and responsibility of those persona? And then how do we do the governance element of it so that we can create the model and the index that is not biased, right? So because especially in recruitment, bias plays a huge role, right? So you can apply both open and care. This is exactly what I was hoping, that people will be utilizing those kind of framework to kind of run the process of creation of new opportunities.
Okay, let's take one last question, and it's kind of a general one, and but I would love to hear your perspective on it. It comes from Marty Wolf, and Marty asks, "How can AI help us deal with climate change?" So, what's your thoughts on that, Faisal?
Look, I mean, there's a number of things it can do. Obviously, one of the debate is the impact of climate change, right? And we don't really have the enough data set to really pinpoint and and we kind of like well, it used to be this, and yeah, it changed, but 100 years from now, it'll be going back. It's these are all pseudoscience and pseudo notion. I think AI has a great potential to show, if we do enough data collection, what exactly happening. Because once we have that data, then we can start formulating how do we go about preventing it, and also the impact of our behavioral pattern. We haven't really modeled out what is the impact of the behavioral pattern that human has. We talk about plastic. Oh yeah, we throw plastic, we clean out the ocean, or we clean out the river, but we don't really actually have that enough data to say, well, if you have this amount of plastic, this is what happens, right? But all you have to do, look, I mean, it's kind of all interrelated, right? I mean, you throw enough plastic in the in the ecosystem, you eat the food, and then there's a rise of a whole new set of diseases. I mean, the type of blood cancer my son has, he's a rare case at his age group, right? You wouldn't have heard about this 10 years ago, but you haven't. Yet we're so evolved, right? We've got better, quote unquote, we have better quality of food, we have better quality of air, but we still have this whole set of new set of diseases and other kind of things. And what is the correlation between climate and our behavioral pattern that driving that? If we could bring that on the surface, I think people will be much more conscious what we do and what we don't, and that'll be the first step of climate control.
Yeah, and I think AI does a really good job of sifting through all the data and identifying hidden patterns, if they truly are true patterns, and thereby identifying correlations. The hard part, I
Yeah,
still don't think AI has helped us with sufficiently yet, is translating that into causations. Like we know what are
yeah.
correlations, but we really don't know for sure specific causations. And I think it's still going to take, like you said, more data, more analysis, and more AI to try to really, in time, to try to figure out some of these causations better, and then right, how to mitigate these issues, right?
So this is why it's garbage in, garbage out, right? It's still learning from whatever we are teaching it. We ourselves haven't spent enough time to develop those kind of qualitative or call, the interconnected model of this particular example that you're talking about. So therefore, we can't just feed it in. So once we have the model, then AI will have the opportunity to extract the data and put it in the model and spit out the results that we're looking for, the data that we're looking for.
All right. Well, very good. Well, Faisal, that's all of our questions, and we're really kind of a little past the top of the hour, which brings us to the end. Any final parting, closing thoughts you'd like to share with us? Buy the
Um,
book, right?
no, no. Well, actually, the book. I mean, if you want to buy the book, it all goes to Cancer Proceed. So you can welcome to buy the book, and hope you'll benefit from that. I'll just share this QRP, and you can pre-order or get access to it. But all proceed goes to cancer research because of my personal situation. So
Excellent.
I
Yeah,
welcome you to buy it.
yeah, and I saw on Amazon that it's available for pre-order. So I would encourage people to pre-order it, read it, give it some thought, and then if they want to get in touch with you, you have your website, faisalhoque.com. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank you so much, Faisal, for being our guest today and sharing your incredibly wonderful and deep insights with us about the future of humanity and AI. It's incredibly wonderful and very much appreciated by our audience. I want to thank our audience, whether you're here live with us or watching the recording, for being a part of our community and tuning into these conversations. Thank you so much for that. So with that, I wish everyone a great day and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, Faisal.